Here we want to simplify -2 times the quantity x to the fourth minus 3, all raised to the -3rd, times 4x cubed. All right, to start with, let's recognize that this is all one term, and everything here is being multiplied. So the first thing we want to sort of recognize is that the parentheses over here around 4x to the third are actually not necessary, since this factor is raised to the first power. So that means that the first thing that we can do is think about this as -2 times the quantity x to the fourth minus 3 to the -3 times just 4x cubed, not in parentheses. And because all of this multiplication is commutative, I can multiply the -2 and the 4x cubed to arrive at -8x cubed times the quantity x to the fourth minus 3, all to the -3rd power. And finally, I want to get rid of this factor that has a negative exponent and want it to be a positive exponent to be fully simplified. So this factor that's raised to the negative exponent is going to drop to the denominator. So -8x cubed will remain in the numerator, and then in the denominator I'll have x to the fourth minus 3, all now raised to the positive third power. Since it moved to the other side of the fraction bar, it becomes the opposite sign. And this negative that's being multiplied can stay in the numerator, or it can actually pop out to the front of the entire quotient. Now let's simplify 2x times -4 times the quantity x minus 3 to the -5th plus the quantity x minus 3 to the -4th times 2. First, we want to recognize that we have two terms here. Terms are separated by addition. So we have one term and two terms. What we can do is attempt to simplify each term before simplifying the entire expression. But I would actually instead look at each term and try to recognize if there are any common factors. So we'll start by looking at numerical factors. In the first term, the numerical factors are 2 and -4. And in the second term, the numerical factor is 2. So they have a 2 in common. I'm going to factor out that 2 that they have in common. Then look at the variable terms. So I have over here an x to the first power, but over here on the second term, I don't have any x's. So that's not a common factor. And then we look at common binomials. So here I have the binomial x minus 3 to the -5th and x minus 3 to the -4th. They do have a binomial in common, and we can factor out the lesser of the two. So the smaller exponent between -5 and -4 is -5. -5 is smaller. So I can factor out an x minus 3 to the -5th. So from here, what I want to do is see what I have left. So I'm going to use brackets. Brackets and parentheses are interchangeable, but I'm going to use brackets to now look at each term, and after I have factored out these common factors, look at what's left over. From the first term, I took out the 2, so what I have left is the x and the -4, but I took out the x minus 3 to the -5th. So I just have a -4x left. And over here, I took out the 2, and I took out -5 copies of x minus 3 to the -4. So to figure out how many are left, I have x minus 3 to the -4, and I took out, which means I subtracted -5 out. So I had -4 and I took out minus -5. Well, minus becomes addition, right? Minus a negative becomes addition. So this is really just to the first power, which means that I don't even need parentheses around this x minus 3 if it's to the first power. So we have 2 times the quantity x minus 3 to the -5th. In these brackets, I have -4x plus x minus 3, since I can drop the parentheses. inside those brackets now, I can combine those like terms, and that would be a negative 3x. So I have negative 3x minus 3. I turn them back into parentheses. Brackets and parentheses are interchangeable. And now I can recognize there's a common factor within these two terms here. There's a negative 3 in common that I can factor out. So I have 2 times the quantity x minus 3 to the negative 5th times this negative 3. And then what I'm going to have left over is an x plus 1. The 2 and the negative 3 can multiply together. So now this is just all one term. And so I'm going to multiply those factors. And I have negative 6 times the quantity x minus 3 to the negative 5th times the quantity x plus 1. And I'm almost done. The final answer is going to be to move the binomial with a negative exponent to the denominator. So I have negative 6 times the quantity x plus 1 all over the quantity x minus 3 to the positive 5. This is my simplified answer.